old. It doesn't have a webcam.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Great to talk
Sorry.
to you.
You can hear me, but you can't see me.
I know. I got your picture though, David. I can see that, and you got a big smile. So I'm happy just to look at that if we don't connect on video.
I appreciate that. Let's start recording. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm already recording on my end. But could you say and spell your first and last name for me?
Yeah, Jeffrey Jinks, Jeffrey. Last name Jinks, Jinks.
Okay, let me move to a different location. Okay, wireless signal here is not the best. A quick quiet spot.
As we're getting started, I'm curious how you heard about the suit. I mean, it's just was filed yesterday, so it's surprising we're getting some coverage right away. But I appreciate it and your interest.
You're welcome. We had tweeted in our newscast last night, so that's how.
Okay.
On our website as well. So in a quick nutshell, I know that the suit itself is many pages long, but could you, in layman's terms, explain what the lawsuit is, what you hope to accomplish, and the part of it, why you filed the suit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big question, and I'm going to ask you to maybe speak up a little bit. I'm having a hard time hearing you, David. But if I understood the question, what it's about in layman's terms, describe it, and and the why, part of the why behind everything. I'd start with, the situation we've got right now is that the governor has issued executive orders for a number of months now prohibiting evictions from occurring, and under state law, federal law, bedrock principles of justice, the governor does not have the authority to stop people from going to court for whatever reason, and we think that he's far overstepped his bounds with this order. He's kept it in place way too long, and we're seeking relief in federal court on several grounds. There's really 7 different parts to the complaint based on the Constitution of the United States, Fifth Amendment's takings clause, First Amendment, which we normally think of as being, freedom of speech, but it's also the freedom to petition courts for redress of grievances. And that's, a bedrock thing here, that the governor's prevented people from going to court. It's unprecedented that that's ever happened, to, say one class of citizens or one type of case is not going to be heard. We also have claims under the Contracts Clause of both the state and federal constitution. And we also have claims for separation of powers, because again, the governor's, with his executive order, is bleeding over all 3 branches of government. He's acting like the legislature, he's acting like the executive of the state government, and he's acting like he's in control of the courts. And his really focus needs to be only in enforcement of what the law is, not trying to create new law indiscriminately.
And could you explain, like, from your client's perspective, their landlords, how, and we're all in this pandemic together, explain from their point of view how hard it is to keep their properties and maintain them during the pandemic, when tenants themselves are struggling with rent, but your clients, they have mortgages to pay. Talk about that from their perspective, how hard it is for landlords.
Well, it's a big problem. It's a huge problem, really. And I'd note that our lead plaintiff is a 77-year-old widow here in Indianapolis, and she relies on this rental income for her retirement. Her husband passed away a number of years ago. She and her husband worked here in Indianapolis, had the same jobs for like 20, 30 years, and they sacrificed, they saved, they invested in the community, they provide a valuable product and service in housing. And, she needs the money to live on, just like everybody else needs, the money to live on and pay their bills, pay their taxes, pay the repairs, pay the upkeep. And it's just a big debacle. And I'd maybe even start with the fact that the governor created this mess. It's not just this executive order, but the unemployment problem and the financial hardship that the tenants are facing as well is all because the governor created that mess on his own when he uh, close down all the businesses. And lots of businesses have gone out completely. And I realize there's quite a bit of, there's unemployment and enhanced unemployment, and there's the stimulus money that's come from the feds. It's, there's a lot of, attempts to help where people can. But, the bottom line is that it's very hard for a landlord to continue providing housing when they don't have any rent to keep up with the expenses. And, that first plaintiff that I mentioned, Ms. Lamond, is a perfect example of that. And she even started this eviction process back in January or February. And, when her tenant quit paying rent. So she hadn't gotten rent on this property since January. And we're almost into August now. It's almost 7 full months going into 8. And it's an extreme hardship.
And that's one of your other clients too, who hasn't gotten rent since January.
That's correct.
Right. I know the moratorium ends this weekend, I think Saturday. And
Maybe.
Possibly. It's slated to end this weekend. What are your hopes for the future in terms of this moratorium from the landlord's perspective? What's the hope after this weekend with the eviction moratorium?
Yeah, hopefully the eviction moratorium will end under the executive order that's pending right now. And you might know, and it's unclear to a lot of people, but these executive orders expire every 30 days because that's the only authority that the governor has under the emergency powers that he's operating under, is to give these 30-day orders and renew them every 30 days if he wants to. So there's a rhyme and a reason for that happening. And we were talking with our clients for several months about whether we should even take action, and finally decided enough is enough. We've got to put an end to this behavior by the governor and stop the lawlessness, stealing of their homes, basically, month by month, little by little. The governor knows how to condemn property if it needs to be condemned, like with a highway or NDOT through I-69 and whatnot, or you're expanding a road. There's a legal process for doing that, and you have to pay for it. If the governor wants to create a new policy for rental assistance, that's great, and we'd love to be part of that conversation. We've been involved in legislation in the past, and we'd love to be a part of that conversation and help craft something that's helpful to everybody. But he can't just come in and steal the homes from our clients and say, don't go to court. I'll let you know when you can have them back. That's not the rule of law in this country, and hasn't been ever. And I look forward to him hopefully lifting this. The governor of Ohio lifted their eviction ban a day or two after it was filed. A federal suit was filed there as well. But we're hoping to see the same type of thing here in Indiana. And then there's other grievances in the complaint besides just the ban. There's damages, and we don't want them to lift it today and reinstitute it on Monday.
Right. What would you say to Hoosiers who are struggling to pay their rent on the website, who are struggling to pay their rent to their landlords? Because if the moratorium ends this weekend, there could be, and I saw a survey, I think it was by Stois Reeses, something like that. They said they were anticipating several thousand of court filings in the next 4 months, and 300-something thousand Hoosiers are in danger of at risk of being evicted. What would you say to those people who are afraid or concerned, like, hey, I can't pay my own rent, then after this weekend, the moratorium could be lifted? What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I'd say about your statistics is double it, because you've got to consider the landlord side of the equation as well that we've been talking about. Without income, the landlord is being decimated financially, and all lawyers are anticipating a massive spike in bankruptcy filings because of the governor's shutdown order here in Indiana and elsewhere around the country. The first advice I would give to tenants, all tenants, and we do a lot of this kind of work, is communicate with your landlord and tell them what your circumstances are, and try to get some kind of deferral, try to get some kind of payment plan. And every landlord that I talk to, every client that I talk to, they are more than happy and more than willing to try to make any kind of arrangement possible. Because you see, an eviction is the last resort. No landlord wants to evict. It's the very last thing that we want, is to have an eviction, because it just means everything is falling apart. And most landlords are very gracious in trying to find ways to work things out with the tenant and provide payment arrangements. A lot of them aren't finally, asserting late fees and penalties and that kind of a thing under the virus. And so communicate, communicate, communicate. That's the most important thing you can do. And if you need to find a different housing solution, work with your landlord, and they'll, I'm sure, help you. There's been many properties bought and sold during the COVID virus. There's been lots of people moving in and out of rental properties all over the state. So it's not like people can't move. That's one of the central tenets of our lawsuit. And there's just lots of opportunity for help. We've even had some of our clients refer people to remind them that they can go to the trustee's office in the township where they live for rental assistance. The city of Indianapolis has a rental subsidy program that they've allocated a substantial amount of money. The governor has allocated money for outside of Indianapolis, right? And people should apply for that. And all the landlords that I work with have been encouraging their tenants to apply for all those benefits that are available and see what they can do to come up with a plan to stay in the home, because we want to provide homes. We provide housing. That's what we do. Eviction is not our business. It's providing housing. That's our business. And we like doing it.
Alrighty. Could you keep me updated on how this goes and progresses? I know it might take a while, but I want to stay on top of it as things progress. So lock my number in and my email as well. And I want to keep in touch with you about this as it progresses.
Yeah, thank you, David. We appreciate it as well.
You're welcome. And thanks so much for the Zoom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. I look forward to your report.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.